Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be doing the anti-TBR tag. This was created by Nicole from Nicole and Her Books, I think it is. I will link her video down in the description below. I haven't been tagged by anyone and I don't plan on tagging anyone at the end, but if you want to do it, consider yourself tagged by me. And without further ado, I'm just going to get into the questions. The first question is, what's a popular book that everyone else is talking about that you have no interest in reading? Honestly, I think I'm gonna have to go with The Poppy War. I have heard a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people from different backgrounds and different reading interests talking about it and loving it, but every time I read the description or watch people's reviews, I just don't feel like it's something I'm going to enjoy. I really am not one for military fantasies, and The Poppy War seems to be quite heavy on the military side, and I've heard it's quite epic and they're very, very chunky books from what I've seen. And all of that together just means that I don't think it's going to be one for me. It seems like it's probably going to be a bit too dry. I don't know if dry is the right word, but yeah, whenever I look at it, it doesn't grab me, it doesn't interest me, so I don't think I'm going to be picking it up. I did buy the Kindle edition for 99p, so if I ever change my mind, then I have that there, but I don't see myself reading it anytime soon or ever, really. The next question is, what is a classic book or author that you don't ever intend on reading? And my answer for this is all classics, pretty much, because I've tried to read a few different classics from different authors. I've tried to read some Dickens, I tried to read one of the Brontes, maybe multiple of the Brontes, I don't know. Tried to read Virginia Woolf, and I just haven't liked any of them. I don't even like the classic Sherlock Holmes stories. That writing style, that I think it's the density of classics that really grates on me, and I find it really hard. It's almost like reading in another language, and it just doesn't appeal to me. I don't enjoy it at all, and that's not why I'm here. I like to read because I like to have fun, and it's not fun for me to read classics. I think if I had to give one absolute definitely not, is Chekhov. And that is because when I was like 13, my English teacher, she was a nice lady but a little bit stuck up in some ways, and she found out that I love to read and that I mostly read fantasy and like young adult books, and she was like, oh yes, well it's great that you read, but you need to read something a bit more proper and to expand your reading, and she told me to read Chekhov, and that was the first like classic I'd ever tried to read. And Chekhov is a lot if you like classics. It's just, it was so hard. I hated it so much. So yeah, definitely Chekhov, but pretty much all classics are a no for me. I'm going to combine the next two questions. They are, what's an author that you have no interest in reading, and what's an author you've tried a couple of books from and have no interest in reading anymore and decided they're not for you. And honestly, like, I wouldn't say I'd ever rule out an author before having read their books. So that's why I'm combining the two, because when I answered the first one on paper, I'd actually accidentally answered the second one. I can't say there is an author out there that I wouldn't read their books if I hadn't read any before, unless they were like hugely problematic, but then I don't think they would really count for me. And I don't like the idea of ruling out books because of who wrote them, because you never know. That's why I really struggled with this tag, is because I struggle with ruling books out because I never know if maybe I will actually like this one. But the authors that immediately come to mind, Cassandra Clare, I don't intend on ever reading any Cassandra Clare books again. I really hated the Shadowhunters series. I thought it was so poorly written, and there's just so much controversy around her that I just don't want to go there because I'm not that invested in her books. Another one is Philip Pullman. I know that's not going to be a popular answer. I love The Northern Lights. I hated The Subtle Knife. DNF The Amber Spyglass. It was just, yeah. And I just don't have any interest in reading this new series he's written in that world. I just, I hated the story by the end, and I don't really know what happens in The Amber Spyglass. I don't have any interest in knowing. So yep, Philip Pullman, I don't feel like I'm ever going to read him again. Another one is Veronica Roth. I read the Divergent series and I thought the first book was fun, but the next two were complete messes and absolutely terrible, especially Allegiant, one of the worst books I've ever read. My biggest problem with Veronica Roth is she kills characters off for no reason. Then I've tried to read The Chosen Ones, I think it's called, or Chosen Ones. I got an arc of that on NetGalley and I ended up DNFing it at about 30%, I want to say. And it was so dull, so boring, nothing was happening. The characters were really two-dimensional and I just was not interested. I don't see myself picking up any of her future books. The next question is, what's a genre that you have tried to get into and didn't like or have no interest in? Again, this one's really hard for me because in the past I've ruled out certain genres and thought I would never ever read them, and turns out that I would if I found the right books. I used to think I'd never read erotica, but if you've seen my wrap up you'll know that I have now. I thought I'd never like horror and thrillers, but I found some really great ones now. I thought I wouldn't like adult romance, but it's so hard. I don't feel comfortable ruling out any genres anymore because if the book is right for me, it doesn't really matter what genre it is, so I'm quite open to most genres. I think the only thing that I really don't like is really academic non-fiction books, so the really highbrow, inaccessible ones, the ones that aren't sort of like beginner level books. And I guess that's kind of universal for a lot of people. Most people don't really like those kind of books, and they're usually for like people in that field. But yeah, those kind of books I really don't like. I'm also not a big fan on apocalyptic dystopians, which is like, it has to be if that's the focus of the book. I'm not interested in like if the focus is on a pandemic, I'm not interested. I also don't like things like paranormal romances, those kind of things. If I'm reading a romance and it's a pure romance, I just kind of want it to be real world. I don't mind there being romances and fantasies, but I'd rather it be a fantasy with a romance element than a romance with a fantasy element, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's all a bit of a grey area though, because you never know, one day I might find a book that I like in those worlds. The next question is, what's a book that you bought that you don't intend on reading? This was really hard because I've actually unhauled a lot lately and got rid of loads of books that I was never going to read, so I can't actually remember what they were. But a few that I've still got up for sale that if they don't sell soon I'll be taking to the charity shop are the Maze Runner books and the Gone series. I have read the Maze Runner, the first book in the Maze Runner series, and I started reading the Scorch Trials but got bored and DNF'd it. And I did the same thing with Gone. I started reading Gone and DNF'd it. And the reason that I'm now no longer going to continue with them is A, I did DNF them, and B, those two authors I believe have both been accused of sexual harassment, so seeing as I didn't like their books to begin with, not attached to them, away they go. The next question is, what's a series you have started reading that you have no intention of finishing? And if I ignore the ones that I've already mentioned before, like Cassandra Clare's series that I haven't finished, and what's the other one I mentioned? Oh, and His Dark Materials. I never intend on finishing the His Dark Materials series. The other two series that I don't intend on finishing are the Paper and Heart Society series. I don't know if there's going to be more than the two current books. I read the first book, didn't enjoy it, tried to read the second book, DNF'd it, so I don't plan on reading any more. And the Court of Miracles series, I DNF'd the first one and have since got rid of it, so yeah, I'm not intending on reading the rest of those series. The final question is, what is a new release that you have no interest in reading? Honestly, this is really hard because I don't tend to keep up with new releases unless it's an author I really love or it's a continuation of a series that I really love. So I find this really hard. I had a quick look up of some 2020 new releases, and the most recent one that didn't grab me that I know people have been hyping up is These Violent Delights. The reason I'm not interested in that one is because it keeps being described as a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and honestly, I don't like them. I am so bored now of Romeo and Juliet retellings. Romeo and Juliet I enjoyed, but that is kind of the exception to the rule. I'm getting a bit fed up of Shakespeare retellings at this point, I think, and especially Romeo and Juliet because it is the most retold one, because I guess it's the most iconic one. And I don't begrudge these being made, especially because this one features characters of colour, so perfectly happy for these to exist in the world. I just personally am not interested in reading any more Romeo and Juliet retellings. It's not my favourite Shakespeare story. It's not a story I particularly enjoy reading, so I don't see myself going for that one anytime soon. But I'm sure there's plenty more new releases that I'm not interested in. I just don't pay attention. I just wait for things to get hyped and then I keep an eye on what their ratings are on Goodreads and tend to buy from that. And I also wait to see people I trust, see what they review things as, and that's kind of how I go, so I don't really keep up with new releases that well. So I feel like I went through that tag really quickly, but I hope you got an idea of some of the books that I don't like, which is a bit weird. I think the message of this is more that I've DNF'd a lot rather than I'm never going to try, because for me, I don't like ruling out authors and books without trying them first. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say here, is a lot of the time the reason I'm ruling these authors or their series out is because I have actually tried them and I know they're not for me. I think other ones that I didn't mention that I'm going to throw out there, because why the heck not? I don't intend on reading any more Erin Morgenstern because I didn't like The Night Circus. And Samantha Shannon, I'm starting to think that she might not be for me. I really didn't like The Priory of the Orange Tree, and I've tried to read, is it The Bone Child Daughter? Is that what it's called? No, that's a different one. There's so many. I think it's something to do with bones, isn't it? I can picture the cover but not the title. But you know, a really famous series. I can't remember what it's called, but you know what I mean. I'll put a picture of it here in editing. But that one I've tried to read before, didn't like it, DNF'd it, but with the intention of going back later on to see if I get like into it again. But if I don't get into that one, then Samantha Shannon's definitely going to be binned off of my like to read list. But yeah, like I said, these are all books and authors that I have tried and not got along with, so I really do believe on giving everything a shot, which is not good for my bank balance or for my like reading anxiety. I think my mentality is quite difficult to live with because I find it really hard to rule out any books, because I don't want to rule them out without giving them a fair shot, but there's too many books in the world to give them all a fair shot. I'm trying to be better about only reading the books I'm really excited for, and that has been working so far. Like, I've had so many more amazing reads, and I think that's the attitude that I want to take forward. So maybe in a year's time I'll do the anti-TBR tag again and see if I can update you on some more like harsh decisions I've made. Okay, that's it for this video. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my answers. If you're mad at me about anything, feel free to scream at me. I'm not going to get upset. If you don't have anything to say but you want to let me know you were here, you can just leave me a little turtle emoji, I guess. I've seen other YouTubers do this and I think it's really cute, because I always want to leave a little note to say that I'm at someone's video, but I don't always have something to say. If you want to say that you were here but you don't have anything to say, leave me a little turtle emoji down below. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are down in the description below. Thanks, bye!